this last week has been a very frustrating week for all of you guys. As you guys know, I'm in touch with a lot of you guys. A lot of people have reached out to me, phone calls, emails, texts, things like that there. The other night I went around to all the houses. I saw how people was just very frustrated, staying in one room, not happy, and they wanted answers. So a couple of the residents said, hey, we want answers of what's going on. So I reached out to Faith from National Grid. She was more than happy to set up this meeting very quick. She's one of the reps from National Grid. As we get started here, we got Mayor Jared Nicholson came also because he knows how important this is for the city of Lynn and for you guys. Lucas Walsh, the owner of Marian Gardens, is here. And we'll have the National Grid representatives introduce themselves.
Victor Santana, un placer.
Faith Hassel, also with National Grid.
Brian Sturgeon, I'm an operations manager.
John Silva, National Grid.
All right, we'll let Faith start it off here. So.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, just briefly.
Oh,
yeah. I just want to say thank you all for being here, and would also like to thank Councilor Hogan for the help putting this together. To my team, everyone for being here. Obviously, what's happening here is incredibly troubling and frustrating, and we want to make sure that you're getting those answers. And so, we really appreciate you being here, and look forward to working with you. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you all for being here. So again, my name is Faith Hassel. I'm the community rep for the city of Lynn from National Grid. So Victor is going to be my translator. So I'm going to give the presentation in English, and then he will translate it to Spanish. And then Brian Sturgeon is our manager for Underground, so he's here to also help answer any questions.
Faith, great point, because I should have said también en español que estamos felices que tenemos esta oportunidad hablar sobre este problema. No es aceptable lo que está pasando y nosotros lo entendemos. Yo agradezco el trabajo del concejal Fred Hogan y todos por estar aquí. La meta es crear este espacio para que ellos puedan contestar sus preguntas. Gracias.
Thank you. Okay, so to run through what happened this weekend and through this week, we'll start with the outages that happened on Friday and Saturday. So Friday night you had your first outage, and when that happens and when you call in for telling us that you don't have power, we send somebody out to troubleshoot. When somebody went out to review what happened, they found in the switchgear, which is one of our larger devices that sits on a cement pad, which you probably see around the development, a fuse had blown. So the fuses are devices within those switchgears that protect the system from either overheating or something more catastrophic happening. So that fuse blew, which tells us that something could be potentially wrong on the cable. So we tested the cable at that point and found that there were no issues. So we put in a new fuse, and then we re-energized the cable, and there were no issues at that point. We found out on Saturday that there was another issue, and when we went out there, the same fuse had blown, and we tested the cable again. We went into the manholes, and we did a visual inspection to see if there were any issues. Again, came up with nothing. Frustrating for you all, frustrating for us, because we feel like there's something going on, but we just can't diagnose it and find the issue. So we re-energized, we put in a new fuse, we re-energized, and then it holds until Tuesday morning. Tuesday morning, you experienced a third outage, and when we went out there, we tested the cable, and we did end up finding that one of the splices, which is where the two portions of the cable come together, it had failed. So we spent the day repairing that splice, that connection point, and we go to re-energize the cable, and then blew again. We had another issue, and that outage continued through the night into the early morning. The reason why, so then we tested the cable again, find out that there's now a fault on the cable, and we pulled the cable, installed new cable, and what would typically take not as much time as it did on Tuesday night, but the manhole that we were working in is much smaller than the typical manhole that we have in our system. So it extended the outage because of the difficulty of getting our men in there, pulling the cable out, pulling new cable in, and then splicing it. So what are we doing about this moving forward? You're probably wondering. Okay, actually we'll pause there before, we'll let them try.
Buenas tardes. Otra vez soy Víctor Santana, soy un gerente de relaciones gubernamentales comunitarias para National Grid. Tengo 17 años con la compañía y 29 años viviendo aquí en Lynn, así que esto es muy personal para mí. Desde el viernes pasado han habido 3 averías impactando la comunidad de suya, el sur residencial. La primera fue el viernes en la noche, donde un fusible no funcionó bien. Si piensan en los breakers que tienen en las casas, en los paneles eléctricos, esos fusibles están diseñados a que se disparen si algo pasa, ¿verdad? Cuando fuimos, efectivamente encontramos un fusible que no había funcionado correctamente, se reemplazó y se pudo restaurar el servicio. Eso fue el viernes en la noche. Sábado, a eso de la 1:30 de la tarde, recibimos una alerta de que había otra avería en la misma zona. Respondimos, los técnicos empezaron a investigar, no vieron algo inmediatamente visible que presentara el problema, pero bajo la investigación sí pudieron coincidir que el fusible que se había reemplazado volvió a fallar. Eso fue el sábado. El martes en la mañana nos levantamos con la misma noticia, el mismo percance de que no hay electricidad. Cuando la unidad, los técnicos respondieron, esta vez encontraron que había una falla en el enlace de los 2 cables donde se unen, había una falla ahí. Los técnicos procedieron a corregir esa falla y cuando estaban haciendo sus pruebas para asegurarse de que todo estaba bien antes de energizar ese cable, se dieron cuenta que todavía no se podía energizar. Investigaron un poquito más profundo y encontraron un segmento del cable que tenía un pequeño problema, lo que fue corregido. Del martes en adelante no han habido ninguna otras averías. La avería, el apagón del martes duró mucho más por las condiciones en las que estamos trabajando. Si ustedes se fijan, ustedes tienen sistemas eléctricos subterráneos, ¿verdad? Por la tierra, que no son palos de luz con cables por todos lados. Porque están trabajando en una zona muy restringida, se complica el reparo. Tenemos que asegurarnos que no haya vapores o gases que puedan ser posiblemente peligrosos para los técnicos trabajando y tenemos que cuidar por otras cosas que pueden suceder, agua sucia y cosas de ese estilo. Por eso se tomó aún más poder hacer la reparación.
Thank you. Okay, so what are we doing moving forward? So first thing is that we recognize that, we don't want you to lose power, and reliability is very important to us. So it is on our radar to potentially replace the cable in the area. While we don't have a project currently in the works, we'll continue to monitor the reliability of this feeder, what's actually feeding your community. And if we continue to see outages on it, we will escalate the issue to ensure that the reliability of this area is recognized and resolved. The project that is in place right now, so that manhole that I was saying that was too small, we do have a project in place currently. We're working it right now, and it'll be to replace that manhole. So if anything was to happen in that manhole in the future, it'll be right-sized for our guys to get in there and make all of the repairs. So that outage would have been a third of the time that it would have taken. We'll start there.
Entonces, ¿qué está haciendo National Grid? Lo primero es que estamos aquí dando la cara, ¿sí? Entendemos que la energía, el servicio eléctrico es una necesidad en este país y nuestra vida depende, muchos aspectos de la vida diaria de nosotros depende de eso. Entonces queremos dar la cara, más que dar a ofrecer excusas, disculpas, queremos dar una explicación de lo que estamos haciendo inmediatamente en relación a nuestras facilidades, a nuestro sistema. El cable que había presentado las averías del viernes en adelante está en un programa de monitoreo, de observación, para asegurarnos que obviamente no vuelva a suceder, ¿verdad? Eso es lo primero. Segundo es que ya hay un proyecto que está avanzando, que es para reemplazar algunos de los alcantarillados por donde pasa el cable, para que si en un futuro suceda algo así, los técnicos tengan más flexibilidad, más espacio para poder trabajar con más eficaz. You mentioned we got the cable, monitoring the cable, and then we're gonna be working on the manholes. Okay.
So yeah, so that's what we wanted to come and talk to you about. We do hear your frustration, and we do apologize for what you've been through in the past several days, and potentially longer than that. We're here to listen and hear your concerns. I don't know if anybody else has any other comments to make. I can open it up for questions.
So you have a question? So we'll go around the room if you have a question for her.
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to get a chance to translate that last
Okay,
piece.
go ahead. Yeah.
Repito, estamos aquí ofreciendo una explicación, nuestras disculpas. Queremos cualquier pregunta, cualquier preocupación que ustedes tengan, la queremos tomar para factorizar eso en el plan de la compañía. Y le damos las gracias al consejero Hogan por permitirnos la oportunidad de organizar este evento para así nosotros poder dar las caras y con la voluntad de Dios entendernos mejor.
First, before we start, I want to say one thing. It's great that you guys all came out today, because this is what I said to a lot of people when I went to the doors. It's more powerful when you guys come out together, and that's how you heard. All right, if 3 people showed up, I mean, nobody cared. But you guys cared. This issue hit you guys, and it hit you guys personally. You know, I went to a lot of doors, like I said, and people weren't very happy. All right, they weren't happy to be in one room with one light, and for that many hours, from 8 a.m. until 1 in the morning. That's a long time, and 3 different times in 7 days. So right now, we'll take some questions. You raise your hand, and you can reach out. Do you want to translate that there? Just.
Yeah. El consejero dice que se siente muy orgulloso que hay una audiencia tan grande, que no solamente vinieron 3, 4 gente, sino que vinieron en números grandes. Eso demuestra y expresa la frustración de la comunidad con los eventos que pasaron. La gente no estaba muy satisfecha, muy contenta con nosotros, que tenían que estar todos conglomerados en una sola habitación, quizás con un bombillo o quizás en una oscuridad totalmente negra. Y para eso estamos aquí. Él va a dar la oportunidad de que quien tenga preguntas, comentarios, que levante la mano y nosotros haremos lo mejor que podamos para poder contestarla.
Before we get started, she's also going to talk to you guys about claims, all right? So she'll go with that there.
Yeah, so Councilor Hogan called me on Tuesday also to ask the question about claims that people had their food spoiled. And while typically we don't reimburse for spoiled food, I did talk to our director of claims, and because of the extenuating circumstances that we have here, I do have claims forms that I can share with you all to fill out if you did have food spoilage. You would just have to go through the process. We don't have a claims person here with us today, but a claims adjuster would be assigned to you and would review your case. And because of the extenuating circumstances, it would be reviewed with greater emphasis to reimburse you all.
Just ask him if anyone needs a claim form.
Yeah, and we don't have them translated in Spanish. We will have those on Tuesday, so if I can work with you to provide you with a Spanish translated version of that, I can do that as well.
Para aquellos residentes que le han preguntado al consejero Hogan sobre un reembolso por algunos alimentos, comida que se le haya dañado porque la nevera, los freezers no estaban funcionando, el consejero le pidió a la compañía, aunque por ley no estamos supuestos no somos responsables por eso, él sí habló con la compañía y llegamos al acuerdo que sí se iban a honrar esos reclamos y que la compañía iba a estar proveyendo formularios para que así puedan enumerar lo que ustedes entienden que se le dañó, se perdió, para nosotros entonces procesar eso. Inmediatamente no tenemos la versión de la forma en español, la vamos a tener disponible de aquí al martes. Aquel que quiera una me puede ver a mí directamente cuando terminemos. Yo le puedo dar mi contacto, mi información de contacto, y así yo me encargo de entregársela personalmente, ya que yo vivo aquí en la ciudad y trabajo en la ciudad y se me hace fácil llegarle.
Does anyone need a claim form? Does anyone need it? Just raise your hand. I'll walk around. That's all.
I'll take one.
And if we need more copies,
Yeah, exactly. Compared to what the issue is, it's
Sorry.
that's like just to shut you up.
We want to make it more complicated.
What's up?
So how do you have something like that? I mean, is this gonna do it or not? You know what I mean?
I would put everything on this. Yeah. Yeah. Right, yeah, absolutely. Right.
You could see it was
Well,
so
it's
flat.
Yeah.
Alright, so
I would say
Cameras.
put everything you can on this
Alright,
form,
just names your card.
and then like provide a receipt, credit card, whatever it was.
Could you say that a little loud so
Sorry.
everyone can hear?
Yeah. So they asked the question, if you had to go out to get food, because you either couldn't use, like you didn't have a stove or a microwave to warm up food and you need to feed your family or yourself. I didn't ask that question if that's reimbursable, but I would say put everything that is a claim, yes, that was because of this outage, put it on the form.
I have a question to that one. Do you have to have receipts?
You would need to have a receipt or prove some sort of.
Well, I'm all afraid of
Nobody will have a food receipt.
Yeah, they're not gonna have the
That's not
receipts.
No,
Most
it's
people,
not.
There's not
they
one
go to the store,
person
they
that
don't even worry about picking up the receipts. So, I mean,
I would still put it on, and the claims adjuster will work with you. I don't know if it was on like a debit card or credit card or anything like that.
You're right.
cash.
So if I may, so two separate issues, right? So there's the question you brought up, what happens to those families, those individuals that went out to a restaurant to pick up food because they couldn't eat at the house, right? If you have those receipts, those transactions, make it part of your claim form. Now for people that are claiming, well, what happens to the food that I had in my fridge from a week ago, 2 weeks ago? Obviously no one's gonna have those receipts. If you could do the best you can at itemizing whatever you believe was lost, then that helps the whole process.
Yeah. I was just, more curious about people that had to, go out, because there's a lot of kids there, and you have to be kids.
Están hablando que cómo se comprueba, cómo se confirman los gastos de la comida, ¿verdad? La señora aquí hizo una pregunta muy válida que ella sabe que hubieron personas que tuvieron que salir a un restaurante a comer ese día porque no podían comer en su casa. A eso les pedimos que si tienen los recibos disponibles donde fueron al restaurante, que por favor se lo agreguen al reclamo que van a someter. En el caso de la comida que se desperdició, se dañó en la nevera por falta de electricidad, obviamente nadie va a tener un recibo de 2, 3, 4 semanas atrás. Entonces lo que sí le pedimos, que si pueden hacerlo, lo mejor que ustedes pueden, tratar de recordar lo que estaba, lo que usted entiende que se le dañó y ponerlo en el reclamo. Entonces el inspector de la querella puede tener una idea mejor de cómo poder reembolsar ese dinero.
Can I say, I got a problem. My wife has pets. What happens when the electricity goes?
yeah, the same question I have. With medical problems, people that have like pacemakers or a breathing machine, where do we go, like foreseeing if that happens in the future? I mean, what are you gonna do then? Because outage that long, it affects a lot of people.
You want to translate my question first?
Sí. La pregunta es, ¿qué pasa con aquellas personas, aquellos clientes que tienen una condición médica, ¿verdad? Que ya dependan de un aparato, de una máquina para poder tener una salud completa. Ellos quieren saber el proceso, ¿qué se puede hacer en esos casos?
Yeah. So I want everybody to understand this. There's overhead electrical construction and there's underground electrical construction. And there are pros and cons to both systems. underground is pretty complex. The benefit to underground is it's not really subject to wind and rain and branches falling on it, and there are a lot less outages. The bad part of underground is when there's a problem, it takes longer to fix than an overhead line. For instance, it was the same issue over and over again that gave you all these outages. But it wasn't an overhead line that fell down that they could see and then just go and fix. There are 16 sections of cable, a couple 100 feet each, that feed from a switchgear on June Lane. Come down Shepherd, take a left on Summer, and then go and distribute throughout Marian Gardens, feeding the different transformers. It's a little bit like a needle in a haystack sometimes to find these faults. So, unfortunately, the first 2 faults over the weekend, they weren't so large that they tested bad. When we put our test equipment on the cable, it still tested good. It wasn't going all the way to ground. So when they closed the fuse, it actually held. It didn't flash over to ground right away. It held for several hours, and then it locked out again. This happens sometimes. It happens in all cities, all towns, all areas with underground. It's the nature of the beast. It happened again the next day on that weekend, the second outage. They still could find nothing. They looked in manholes, they found no damage, it tested good, closed it back in, it held for a period of time. The third outage, they found something. They found a splice that was burnt up. That was the connection Faith talked about between 2 wires. They thought that was it. They went and closed the fuse, it blew. There was an additional section. That additional section, now it's not just a splice, it's a whole length of cable that had to be replaced. And that had to be replaced for manhole 8. Go ahead.
What if this happened again? I have a medical problem.
Yep.
Not just me, a whole bunch of people have medical problems. What if this happens
The man's
again?
gonna address this right now. We're just talking over there. I talked to his chief of staff. We're coming up with some other ideas, but he's gonna address this right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly important concern.
It's good that you guys are talking, but you don't explain when this will happen again. What are we to do?
Right.
And another question, hold on, another question is, the complex that my parents live in, they don't accept generators and stuff like that. Excuse me, 1 second, let me just try and get this. They don't accept generators for the house so they can get power to the people that have pacemakers and need the power immediately. So what is National Grid gonna do to make sure that there's no issues? I totally understand where he's coming from, but there's other way to prevent the maintenance, to troubleshoot. If you have a main line coming into the 86 lines and you have a fault, then you have a guy out there testing every line to make sure that what line is in fault. I do the work. I'm out there doing the work, so I know what happens.
Yeah,
So do you run another line to the main line in case it happens again?
So those are great questions.
You know?
Those are questions for National Grid, and I want to respond to the concern about the medical emergencies, if that's all right. So if the bottom line for any medical emergency, if there's a medical emergency, please call 911. If you are in medical danger, call 911. We also want to have more resiliency here. If it's not a medical emergency, but you're concerned about the impact, we're capable of opening emergency shelters, emergency resources.
That would be good.
So we'll follow more about exactly what that looks like. But between our public health department, between police and fire, and the ambulance service, and as well as our emergency operations center, we have some designated locations, and we're also working with the Red Cross and others about setting up others. There's rules about the scale of the emergency and what kind of things we can do, but we want safety is always the #1 priority. So we are looking at ways that we can create sort of smaller shelters that would be appropriate for something that would work for something like this. But even in the meantime, if anyone has a concern for their safety and there's a medical emergency, please call 911.
That was my next move.
Okay.
Yeah.
First en español, yo quiero brevemente explicarlo en español. La pregunta fue sobre las necesidades médicas. Si alguien está utilizando una máquina que necesita luz y hay un riesgo para la salud.
Please, can you let them talk so we can hear it, please? Everybody wanna listen, let them talk, please.
Thank you. Si hay una emergencia medical, siempre llama 911. En cada caso, no dude en llamar a 911. También tenemos la habilidad de abrir centros en emergencias y normalmente es durante emergencias más grandes, pero estamos tratando de crear más oportunidades, abrir estas salas con recursos en este tipo de situaciones. Si, por ejemplo, no es una emergencia que necesitan llamar a 911, pero hay un riesgo, hay miedo sobre lo que va a pasar sin luz.
Sometimes you call emergency. Let's say you call the company. Can you tell me how long? Nobody know nothing, okay? You got 3 days like my wife, you need medical machinery that had to be on at all time, okay? It should take 3 days. Why don't you think you're better off paying the hotel so they can go and stay in the hotel for 2-3 days until the bridge is done? And at least you can plug the machine and it's working and you're safe. Other than be guessing, it's gonna be done tomorrow, it's gonna be done next day, because nobody know the answer. Well, get somebody with better troubleshooting.
You're a customer service rep, or what do you do? What do you
I'm
do?
the liaison to the
You're the
city.
liaison, so there should be a customer service rep, there should be knocking on the doors instead of our city councilor that's been knocking on the doors, checking on people. You understand? You're a $1 billion business, the minimum of a customer service rep to say, listen, we're trying the best that we can, we're looking at a 4 or 5 hour window. That's the courtesy that you have when the bills are, raised to outrageous amounts where people can barely survive to pay them. You know what I mean? It's just, there's no common courtesy that you guys did on a
You
circumstance like
cannot get
this
contact with nobody.
with the place that happened.
System is terrible.
Yeah, it's,
I called 20 times and nobody can, as a matter of fact, I cannot talk to a human, I talk to a computer that don't tell me nothing. Couple of minutes and hang up and that's it. Call again, leave a message.
I understand.
It's a nonsense.
I understand that our counselor, we can call on our counselor anytime he's there, he's back, and he was running to door to door. We have 94 units in our complex. And this man had to get off his job, come and get another person to translate to the Spanish people. It's not right. Where is our the property manager? Where is Marian Gardens also? Not just Freddie, but where is the property manager?
Now one person knocked on our doors.
That's not
Very
fair.
water on our-
They don't answer the telephone. They do not answer the telephone. Nobody.
Nothing at all, not even on.
Our councilor shouldn't have to do everything.
Hogan doesn't live with us, he's not our mayor.
And that's
He
right.
can provide a lot of things for us.
That's
Yes,
it.
he's Ward 6, but moving forward, there was a lot that we had to deal with. We have kids, some of us are infants. Nobody
where's the
took the time
property
to knock
manager?
on the door and see if anybody was okay. I seen one lady go to the hospital in the ambulance. That's not fair.
No, it's not
That
fair.
wasn't okay.
And where's the property manager? But they won't have rent, but where they at? They should be here too.
owner is here.
Where? Okay. I just want to say, I just want to be sure. Owner's here. They should have been knocking on our door
Nobody
as well.
knocked at 1
They
in
should
the
have been knocking
afternoon,
on our
5 in
doors
the
back.
afternoon.
Joel in the back, Joel, I need Joel, Joel,
My issue with National Grid is every time I check the emergency outage map, it would tell me a certain time that it was estimated to come on. People would call me asking if I needed help. Oh no, the power's coming on in 2 hours. Every time I looked at that map, it went back another 2 hours. 2 hours, till it got too late for me to decide to bring my sister to someone's house where we could have light, electricity, and food. So I suggest you guys update your system on that property map, so that when you tell us what time the power's gonna come on, you got a better idea that that's what time it's coming on.
Right.
That is a good point.
They were
One thing
changing
that I
it
will
every
add to
2
that
hours.
is what Brian's talking about, right? So it's a troubleshooting process. So when we first go out there, we have an estimated time of restoration, right? But to Brian's point, as they continue to expand their investigation, it keeps pushing that potential restoration time back. So I do see what you're saying. I agree with it.
Didn't know, it should have been more than 2 hours.
What do you do for National Grid?
You do the same thing. Yeah, we're coming over.
Have you noticed how many times Marian Gardens has lost the
This
electricity?
property was established in the 60s. A lot of that cable work went in that time. Now, I know a little bit about the property, okay? And the fact of the matter is, I tried to explain that to one of your colleagues. And he just wanted to push me off. So I said, have a good day, and I walked away. That was total ignorance.
Ernie, how many times has Marian Gardens lost the power in the past 10 years? Quite a few.
times.
Can't you look and see?
It happened about 2 years ago, right?
No, it happened a year ago
Oh, a
yesterday.
year ago.
And we lost it again.
It's more.
It came up on my memory, but
The whole system is whole. Why don't they do it all? Do the right thing. Fix it.
My other question is,
They didn't answer?
when are they going to inspect all of the cable?
exactly.
Correct.
So that they know where their
Right.
problems are?
Instead of putting a
I-
Band-Aid on it.
I worked for some European electrical companies, and I did a lot of electrical work myself, so I know a little bit about it. I'm not a genius, okay, but I know a little bit. And I worked that property over there for 42 plus years. I know that property, I know my hand. Okay? We've got problems with the electrical system, it needs to be corrected.
Okay, so I'll try and explain the system to you a little bit more. There's a primary mainline feeder that comes from the Lynn substation. And it goes throughout the city, hits different switch gears. The switch gears have fuse positions that then feed transformers that then feed different neighborhoods and different buildings. 21J28, it's a 4 kV feeder that feeds the switch gear that then feeds the transformers that feed Marian Gardens. 21J28 was a really poor performing feeder. Every time that feeder locked out, not only did Marian Gardens lose power, but everybody on that feeder lost power. There's 2 fuse positions out of that switch gear. One fuse position feeds Rosedale Square, a little cul-de-sac around the corner. The other feeds Marian Gardens. But this also feeds up by the Commons and feeds down Western Ave. It feeds quite a bit. So, it was old cable. It's like, to your point.
Yeah,
It
because
doesn't
I know.
last forever, right?
I was born and bred in this neighborhood.
Everything
I know
has
this
to-
city like I know my hand.
I bet you do. Everything has to be replaced at some point. It can't all be replaced at once. The company goes after the bigger feeders that affect the most people so that we can have more reliability and less people get affected. About 5-6 years ago, we replaced that whole feeder. Tremendous amount of work. Since then, I know that there's been a couple outages at Marian Gardens. One, maybe the one a year ago, was off of one of the transformers,
On Blossom Street, right?
the further one.
Yeah.
So that was secondary cable that burned up in the little handhole outside the transformer. That's not National Grid's cable. We fixed it.
Okay.
So National Grid owns the primary cable and owns the transformers, not the secondary cable. That was the last outage, other than this series of outages that I remember. And I don't remember them all.
I do.
I bet you do. And I'm sorry, more than I do.
I had a
But
father that was on oxygen, I had to run and fill his tanks up, make sure he was all set when we lost power, so I remember him well.
I keep a very close eye on Lynn. I don't live far from here. This is an area that I've always covered. I cover a bigger area now. I keep a close eye on Lynn. I've
So
been
you
very...
jumped from Blossom Street to the green thing in front of Maylocks Lane, and then you went behind Tommy Lane. So how does that work? Because you started on Blossom Street.
So, if I understand your question, and I don't mean to tell you with details, but I'm gonna try and work through each piece. I wanna be open and honest with you, and I'm gonna tell you everything I know. How the system comes in, is that what we're getting at?
Well, yeah, because they started working the other day on Blossom Street, and then they went from Blossom Street, they're already in the green box on the property.
Yeah.
Friday you said,
Oh,
don't quote me.
Okay, I see
And
what,
they fixed a wire.
yeah, I see what you're
And then
getting
they
at.
were on Blossom Street
Yeah.
Tuesday. And then, I don't know what they were doing, they were there for a long time. Then they came back to the green box because another wire was no good, so they fixed that one. That's what I was told.
Yeah.
And then that night, Freddie, right, they were behind Tommy Lane. When we did the walkthrough, they were behind Tommy Lane.
Well,
In
that's
that
when they
little manhole
backed
that
out
you're
all
talking
the water
about.
too.
Yeah, so the switchgear feed originates at June Lane. The
At
feed-
June Lane, okay.
There's 16 or 17 sections of primary cable that come from June Lane, come down. There's a multiple splice where one line goes into the first transformer, and then it continues over to Blossom, goes down Blossom into the transformer there. The green boxes are the transformers. They need an endpoint to test the cable. So, you know, when they were at the transformer, I'm sure they were doing some troubleshooting to see if there was voltage and things like that. Once they pass that point, they get their test equipment, hook it up to the primary cable, and see if they can get it to test bad. Once it tests bad, they get it to thump. You say you're in this business, so you can understand that. So, the first 2 outages, it would not test bad.
Yeah, but you'll have a fault. There always comes a fault. You run power to it, it runs back a reverse connectivity, and it'll run you where the fault is.
Yeah, no, it won't. So this is 5,000 volt cable.
Yeah.
And the way that you know, voltage is always trying to go to ground. It's always trying to break through the insulation.
Yeah.
That insulation contains the voltage. Over time, it breaks down and it goes to ground and it blows a fuse. That's what happened. If the hole is big enough and dry enough, it won't go to ground. So when we put a test on it, you're right. Sometimes it's clear coming from the transformer, but not clear coming from the switchgear. So if we went back to the switchgear and tested against the grain, maybe now we could get it to test bad. That's a method we frequently use.
I was gonna say, that's what you have to do, that's your major troubleshoot there. You
Why?
want to bring power to the line gets flowed back. If you don't get a negative power there,
So-
then you shut the power off and check the
Okay,
next one.
but sir, just let me continue.
All right.
I'm just
Yeah.
trying
Okay.
to tell you what happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so, that was done. They then closed the fuse and put full voltage on it. Now, full voltage is running past the fault, going to the transformers, carrying load, feeding all the customers. This happens sometimes. It doesn't happen often, but it happens sometimes with underground cable. Very difficult. You can't thump that. It's carrying full voltage. And you talk about the theory of it testing from both sides. It's AC electricity. It's coming from one side, it's going through, it's going back and forth, it's carrying load, it's feeding customers. There's no test set in the world that's going to show that fault. It's carrying full voltage.
No, but if I
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
The cable itself, is it lead sheathing?
It's a mishmash of, there's some lead cable in there, there's some rubber, and there's some jacketed concentric neutral cable. So, more importantly, what are we going to do to make this better, right? Like, that's the bottom line. That's what we need to do.
Replace it all?
Yes, one of the things that we've done, and you all remember when we replaced the transformers, that was kind of during the 21J28 days before that was replaced. We were having a lot of outages. That was a nightmare. We replaced the transformers, so you have modern transformers. The one thing that's still old is the 16, well now 15, because we replaced one of the sections out there over the weekend, is replacing that cable. It's old infrastructure. You all have seen some of these manholes and how small they are, and Faith mentioned, you know, that is what tripled the length of repairs when they had to pull the section. They had to pull a section from the middle of the intersection of Summer and Shepherd to the hole on the corner. That hole, it's like a garbage can. Our best guy, literally our best guy in the department, who y'all should be proud of, he's a Lynn guy, is the guy that made that repair.
Yeah, I know,
Thank
you
God,
got 'em. Yeah,
thank
it
God,
was
he,
nice.
thank God he was there, because it would have been even longer to
And I'll
fix
just
that.
say one thing, I went out there and that guy said, we will not leave until this power's on.
Yeah.
He said, Fred, Councilor, I will not leave until this power's on that night, and he guaranteed.
And-
Yeah, he's nice. And
Listen,
he was down there, and he
I'm
didn't
trying
see
to explain to you what
Yeah.
happened, but I'm not like justifying it. So I'm trying to be clear and open and honest with you all, to let you know what you're dealing with.
You see,
This isn't an excuse, I'm just trying to tell you what's going on with this system. So now, we're up against the infrastructure, which is a lot of these tiny manholes, not clear ducts all the way. If we had, bigger manholes, and if we had open ducts, conduits all the way, it would be pretty easy to rip new cable in from June Lane all the way through, cut it over, it wouldn't take that long. But we are up against this infrastructure battle. He was able to do a tape splice, a little tape splice with this new section in that manhole, to cut all the secondary out of the way, to do a ton of stuff he shouldn't have had to have done. But we need to expand that manhole in order to do it right. So just let me finish this thought, then I'll get to you.
If people don't understand you,
Right.
they're
Oh, the translator, yeah.
Yeah.
And if I may, can I just get back real quick to the medical condition, serious illness? Because I want to answer his question and the lady's question back there, because it is a serious issue.
Yeah.
And it's something that National Grid has a process in place. Y yo lo voy a traducir un momentito. If you haven't done so, make sure that when you call customer care, National Grid customer service, that we have you coded for a serious illness medical condition, because that creates another layer of information that we can use to provide potentially a different level of service to you. Because we show the outage. The outage says on that feeder or that line, we have X number of people with serious illnesses. So that prompts a call out to say, hey, we're checking in, we have the situation. It may even prompt a response from someone like Faith or myself to go knock on the door, because we are known to do that. We do that as part of our day. Le estaba contestando la pregunta al señor y a la señora que decían qué pasa con estos clientes que tienen una condición médica seria que dependen de la electricidad. Y le estoy pidiendo que por favor se comuniquen con National Grid para que le pongan un código a su cuenta de que hay un residente en esa propiedad con una situación médica. Por si se da el caso de una avería, hay una notificación, una información adicional que la compañía puede utilizar para tratar de contactar al cliente o quizás un acercamiento distinto que solamente decir, bueno, cuando llegue la luz, llega la luz. Do you want me to translate some of that or you just wanna?
Ya está bien.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the one thing that I'm saying, we can go around talking about the process of what happened and what the fault is, right? So what plan do you got in place, in case of, God forbid, a month from now, and it's snowing out, there's people out there that don't got power for 3 days, and now we're worrying about a natural, cause that happens there. What do we do?
Yeah, so I'll say something real quick. The city, we just talked about that there. We're gonna work on another facility, like a backup emergency shelter. If something like that happens again, we'll get the people that really need to get inside. We'll open up a shelter. It'll be enough for the whole complex.
No, that's great on your part. That's great on your part. I don't care about your part. You're doing a great job. Bay's doing a fabulous job. Thank you very much. I'm saying what National Grid is going to do. Do they have a follow-up system where they're going to PM? Are they going to follow through with this system to make sure that they don't have the issues like before? You know what I mean? I don't care about the whole thing. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that you're going to put this stuff in place. I want to see what National Grid's going to do. That's what happened. We're not here for you.
A couple of things that you had wrapped into that. The first thing is, if we know you're going to be out of power for 3 days, which you were inconvenienced badly for 3 days, but you weren't out of power for 3 days. If we know you're going to be out of power for a length of time, for 24 hours, believe me, we're going to be knocking on doors and we're going to be engaged. We're going to be way more engaged. I can't apologize enough for the inconvenience and the potential safety issues that you had. We did not know that this was going to happen. And I feel a little bit foolish telling you that, but that's the God's honest truth.
No, I know.
We did not predict this. So that's why I'm trying to explain the complexity of the system. More importantly, to get back to where we were at. What are we gonna do to prevent this in the future? What are we gonna do about Marian Gardens power issues? Okay, so even before this, we have a project all down Summer Street and a little bit up Shepherd to do some civil work to get some new conduits and to expand that manhole that you all saw Chris working in. So that's already designed. The money's already allocated for that. We haven't broken ground. I don't know if we will be. There's a moratorium on digging, but those wheels are already turning. The infrastructure, making it bigger to handle the new cable, has to be done. We can't just go rip. I wish we could. I wish we could just rip new cable all the way through there, but we gotta expand the infrastructure a little first.
100%.
Yes.
I agree with you.
Yes.
But she just told you, did it happen, a situation happen a year ago? Why didn't you talk about the same situation a year ago? So a year in place, you could have backtracked it, so right now, we could be already in the role of making the construction to making that manhole big enough.
Okay, so, hold on,
You know what I mean?
Faith. You're right, we should be ahead of this. You know, I wish that we were never in this meeting and that we had replaced all this cable before any of this happened. That's what we need to shoot for. That needs to be the goal. The outage a year ago, it was Marian Gardens' own secondary cable. It wasn't ours. That doesn't change the fact that it's 1960s or older era cable. So I'm not just saying, you know, a year ago everything was fine. A year ago everything wasn't fine. It wasn't National Grid's cable, but National Grid's cable still sucked.
No, but I'm saying if you see that prompt to you there, I would go and inspect my other lines of the service coming into the garden anyway. So that's just troubleshooting, preventive maintenance.
So we understand it's aged cable. We already have the project allocated to beef up some of the infrastructure. It may be enough to replace the cable. It's something that we have to take a closer look at, and there, you know, there's backhoes, there's civil work. It's more than just installing new cable. So if I stood here and told you next week you're gonna have new cable, this is not gonna happen again, I'm not gonna lie to you like that. But I am honest when I'm telling you that wheels are turning. You know, and I can't give you a deadline or a time frame, because again, there's a lot of things at play that I just can't answer now, but I can honestly tell you there are wheels turning to make this better.
Yeah, no, I'm not here to blame, but I'm here to make sure people do their job. Just like Belichick says, if you're going out there inspecting lines and you're going out inspecting a complex, you should have an inspector going out inspecting those manholes if there was an issue that already faulted to the Marian Gardens a year ago. You know what I mean? That's just common practice, I would believe, in a company that's worried about these lines. You know, it have issues with this power.
One of the facts was, like in front of Clonakilty where those manholes are there, up on the mountain, we actually drained them out a number of years ago because the water level had gotten to such a level that we were going to lose everything.
It's a constant battle, groundwater, it's a constant battle, no question.
And out on the boulevard, you had the same issue because there was a back there backing everything out.
And the one in front of Tommy too.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Most of the manholes, from the Lynnway all the way through here,
that one because he worked for the city.
and they're different than the sewer holes. They don't connect, although sometimes there are breaks and the water will migrate back and forth, but the water table is what it is. And you know, pros and cons. The underground system, most people really want underground, and there's a lot of benefits to it, but there's a lot of cons also.
I mean, if you got enough, you lose your power, then you're trying to get all the electric.
May I speak up for a second? My name's John Silva. I live about 20 minutes from here off of Walnut Street. I was originally asked to come and translate because I'm also the Hispanic Professional Association lead here in Massachusetts for National Grid. Thankfully, Victor's here. He's fluent in Spanish. You didn't have to hear my Portuguese because I'm from Brazil. On behalf of National Grid, I'm sorry this happened. You know, Brian and his crew did an amazing job trying to get out there, but there's limitations. What I can say is that I want you guys to write down your names and numbers, and I guarantee you, I will have somebody call you. You will have someone to speak to. and I want to work with the mayor and the council.
We have a
can-
sign-in sheet going
We
on.
can have a follow-up meeting 1 month from now, and we will give you an update of what we're doing. You know, I'm one person removed from our president, Steve Warner, and I know Steve is focused on you, our customers, right? So even though the fault happens, our communication can improve, and we'll do a better job, I can guarantee it. So make sure you write down your name, and I guarantee you, someone's going to call you. I will be back here, we'll work with the mayor, and hopefully, possibly somebody else with me a month from now, and we'll give you an update of what we're doing to make things better.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Sorry. And one thing about the claim form, just to final.
Yeah, so if you have your claim forms and they're filled out, just please send them to the email at the top.
I have a number of issues, health issues. I also have Lifeline in my apartment, and I need electricity for the Lifeline, and if I fell, I have vertigo, and I fall from time to time. If that happens, and I need to call Lifeline, I can't, because there's no electricity. So, I don't know, I mean, yesterday somebody called me back from these past calls that I made in the last few days, and they said call back and give them the information about me. Nobody cared. They didn't write anything down in the system.
Right there.
Thank you.
If you fall in and Lifeline doesn't work, like, do you have a device that you would be able to call 911?
Well, she's basically telling you, Lifeline is a system that attaches to your wrist, all right? Doesn't dial a phone number, doesn't do anything. What you do is you press a button, and it automatically contacts the emergency phone call. So when you fall or some emergency, when they explain it to you, they're not going there and calling their iPhone and saying, Siri, call. The button is right here, they touch it, and that's the emergency that they have. Most of the people have illnesses that they cannot talk or something like that when there's an emergency that happens. So that's why we're trying to explain. So the phone, you could throw it out the window. Yeah, it's a great technology thing, but it's not what it's meant for, correct?
Write down my number. 617.
Write it down.
285 6094. You're going to call John Silva. 617.
Come on, John.
It's all right.
617.
285 6094.
John Silva.
I got a lifeline, I got a pacemaker, everything in the house. I need electricity.
It's not the point of that. It's the point that they should have. They have a generator that they can power that unit, the whole.
That number again.
You understand?
617
Exactly.
285
Yeah, it goes to the main line. Troubleshoots.
6094.
6094.
It's going to ring this number.
No, Dad, it's
Tell me
your
the
time. They'll show you
situation,
the section.
and I'll take
All the
ownership,
time.
and I'll
If
try
there's
to
a fault,
help
you can
you.
walk it through because that's what we do.
Sorry, quick question.
Sabrina, I got you. Yes.
We like priority with the claims, and food is very important. I want to know how long it might take, and do you see us as a priority, and what does priority mean to you?
For sure. So our claims director knows about the situation. There will be a single claims adjuster assigned.
That's why you guys should be collecting the paper, because doing it online, how would they know it's us? I think too much. I think way too much.
Maybe you should have a representative go over the property and the people that don't know how to use the computer. Maybe sit down and explain to them and they take their lead and we can forward it on to them.
Well, this is another situation that not everybody has a computer.
That's what I'm saying. There should be a representative that comes, that used to come to the complex and talk to them. There's elderly people that don't even know how to use the phone.
So the mayor and the chief of staff suggested, so we do have National Grid office hours in the Lynn City Hall once a month. I'm gonna ask if we can have an actual adjuster there, in person, for those that either can't fill out the form, or if you need additional assistance in that. So I'll work with the mayor and the chief of staff, and then I'll work through the counselor as well to provide, if we are able to provide an adjuster.
That's not fair. You guys could have just collected the paperwork and brought it in the office.
Yes, it's like I'm gonna travel to my country, I'm not gonna be here. I'm leaving tonight, so I'm not gonna have time to do this.
We have a lot of elderly that don't use computers, they don't have access. We have people in wheelchairs.
I think
Taking
that
the paper is so much easier.
put the name and the telephone in the Marian Garden and we'll give it to you guys and.
But what they're gonna do is, he lives in Lynn, and he lives in Lynn, they're gonna come out to the complex, they're gonna help you. Because they said they're close, they'll be able to help you. They'll be able to provide their services for you.
Yeah, but our question is priority.
Yeah, right.
I
did offer.
All right, so now you'll be able to.
Talking about the form to the claim.
Espera.
Como le mencioné al principio, right? Que yo voy a tener los formularios en español. Y yo le dije que después de la presentación me dieran a mí para darle mi información para cuando tengan el formulario listo, yo pasar a recogerlo y depositar a la compañía. La pregunta de la señorita atrás, ella quería saber si se le iba a dar una prioridad a los clientes que están pasando por esta situación. Y le dijimos que sí, incluso se acordó con el alcalde hacer 1 hora o 2 horas en la alcaldía, en el City Hall, para tener a nosotros presentes y también a una persona del departamento de reclamo presente que quizás tenga la habilidad de poder dar una respuesta instantánea.
If you fill out your forms today, they will take your forms today. So you don't have to do the email thing, they will take your forms. So if you want to stay and fill out your forms, if you need a pen, I'll give you extra pens.
Greg, excuse me.
Yep.
Sorry. How many people in here, when you lost groceries, was that a serious hit for your budget? How many people?
Que cuando perdieron la electricidad,
It's the only thing I hear about.
problema bien grave
Because
para
I just
su
went shopping.
economía, para su dinero.
So
¿Cuánta comida ustedes perdieron?
So my question is, I think it's appreciated.
Let's go. My car is around, I can pull it up.
So from National Grid, it's appreciated, you said there's a specific point person. What I would like to know, from our group's experience, will you commit that it will be expedited so people will not wait for weeks and weeks for checks to be processed?
La pregunta para la National Grid es que si ellos se comprometen a que este proceso de este claim que ellos están haciendo lo hagan lo más rápido posible porque ustedes necesitan su alimento.
I know the claims director. If you have an issue with your claims, call me, and I will personally expedite it. So that same number is 617-285-6094. Be nice when you call.
The other question that we've heard from people is, la otra pregunta, the other question is, will people be credited for their entire month's bill, given the hit everyone took and the inconvenience?
La otra pregunta es, las personas que estuvieron afectadas por este problema, ¿le van a dar el crédito por este mes, por el tiempo que no han sido afectados, sí o no?
I did speak to somebody today about this, that was something that was spoken about to some of the customers. I don't have an answer on that yet. There was...
You're not getting electricity, so you're not getting charged.
So when can I have $100 to give us
I don't give you
that?
electricity, that's all we're doing. I'll go on $900 and you don't get power, that's it. So when you're dead, you don't need no power.
To give that answer.
¿Quién tiene la autoridad para recibir esa respuesta? Ellos no tienen la
They're fighting for $80 worth of groceries when there's thousands of dollars.
Don't need for the whole month.
Mira, déjame hablar. Yo pedí un permiso en mi trabajo porque yo pensaba que ustedes me iban a recibirlo con un cheque, porque todo el mundo lo de la nevera, yo pensaba que ustedes venían con un cheque, pero no, de que para esto, perdiendo unos tiempos, perdió el tiempo de la luz, perdió el tiempo de venir